romance, virgins, decapitation, violence, elder abuse, travel, coming-of-age adventure, old friends, new beginnings. Exploring a world that you thought you once knew, only to find out you know nothing. You see, when I was a child, when I was an 18-year-old child, me and my best friend, Keegan Early, went across Canada on a Greyhound bus. And why I feel like this is so important to talk about is that this bus line is now discontinued, so you can no longer take this bus anymore. You know how sometimes you take a mental snapshot? I have a mental snapshot of when I was first leaving to get into the car, and there was no streetlights on this street. It was pure darkness, and I remember just the smell of the grass and the smell of the trees all around us. And I remember thinking, this is it. I'm going to British Columbia. I'm about to take a trip across the country. And the thing is, I packed, you got to imagine, I was a very dedicated guitar player at this time. I thought I was going to be the next Jimi Hendrix. I needed to get my 10,000 hours in because that's what that book said you have to do. I didn't even read that book, by the way. Someone just told me you have to get 10,000 hours in on a guitar. So we were going for a month, and I thought in my head, hey, there's no way I can go a month without an electric guitar and an amplifier. So that's what I brought with me on my backpacking trip. I brought an electric guitar and a small microcube amplifier. Looking back, I really wish one of the adults in my life had told me, hey, listen here, little romshii. You're going to be just fine if you take the small acoustic guitar that you already have, but nobody told me that, so I was severely overpacked. And eventually, we did get to the Greyhound bus station. I had my guitar, my amp, and my giant traveling bag, and we were left there to our own devices, to wait, and the nerves began to boil inside me. I get nervous now as a 33-year-old man traveling, let alone then as an 18-year-old boy. I was extremely nervous, and I was just kind of darting my eyes all around the Greyhound bus terminal, wondering what was going to happen. What's going to happen to me? Am I going to be okay? Oh my God, are my guitar students still going to be there when I come back? All this stuff. And I noticed a strange man walking throughout the Greyhound bus terminal. And I'm about to introduce a character that's going to reoccur later, so I need you to pay attention to this one. This man, he looked to be about mid-40s. He had a full head of hair and a pencil-thin mustache. He wore Jeffrey Dahmer-style glasses. He had a black windbreaker on with purple shoulders and tight black pants with white sneakers. We will refer to this man as Windbreaker because he never took off this windbreaker. And as he paced around the Greyhound station, I wondered, is this guy going to get on the same bus as me? Where's this guy going? What's going on? Why is this man taking the bus? And lo and behold, he did get on the same bus as us. And it turns out he was a music fan as well. You see, Windbreaker took a seat directly in front of me, and he pulled out an old CD player. See, this was so long ago that people carried Walkmans with them. I actually had a CD player with me at the time too, with a big booklet of CDs. I do remember I was very into the band Megapuss, which was a Devendra Banhart side project. I bet you haven't heard the name Devendra Banhart in a while. But hey, that's what I was into, but that's not what Windbreaker was into. Windbreaker was actually not into an artist, he was more into one song. He was into the song Without Me by Eminem. For those of you that don't remember what this song is, it goes, "This looks like a job for me, so everybody just follow me, because I need a little controversy, because it feels so empty without me." And he played this song on full blast full volume for hours, all throughout the night, through the whole overnight trip. This one song was all that he played. That is, of course, until he started fumbling with the Walkman and the batteries fell out and began rolling up and down the bus. Luckily, he had spare batteries in his bag, put them in the Walkman, but didn't get the ones rolling around the bus. So eventually we had Without Me by Eminem and these batteries rolling up and down, and also the sounds of the bus and the sounds of my own stomach gurgling from anxiety. It was intense. But eventually the sun did rise, and the music ceased. And we made a stop somewhere in northern Ontario. It was at this stop we picked up a woman, an older woman. She looked fairly disheveled, and she could not help but talk to herself. Sometimes in English, sometimes it would just be speaking in tongues, but she would talk to herself nonstop, staring into space. And when people tried to approach her, she would get freaked out, she would get mad, she would start yelling. And at a certain point, the bus was so crowded that people were standing, and she refused to give up the seat beside her because she was scared. And this was actually the first time in my life that I had seen an insane person, that I had seen someone talking to themselves, that I had seen somebody who fell through the cracks of society. You see, I was from small town Ontario, totally safe. Everybody there had a family, had a house to go back to. If anybody did have mental health issues, they were well taken care of as far as I could tell. So I had a lot of questions. Why is she on this bus? Who is her family? But there was obviously no answer. And as she rode with us for longer and longer, her condition became more and more unmanageable, to the point where the bus driver said, "Does anybody know this woman? Does anybody know where she's going?" She seemed to have lost her ticket. And as quickly as she was let on, she was kicked off the bus somewhere in Manitoba. And nobody knows what happened to her after that. Shortly after, our bus broke down. Yes, our bus broke down. And we were stranded in the parking lot of an A&W in a nondescript urban sprawl area for about 10 hours, adding almost an entire day to our trip. And it was in this A&W that a romance began between a female passenger and Windbreaker. You remember Windbreaker? We were just talking about Windbreaker. Now he's back. And he actually has a budding romance with a female passenger. They were having a couple mama burgers and they connected. And from that point on, they seemed inseparable, talking and talking the whole way there. Windbreaker had no need for his M&M anymore, for he had a real live woman to talk to. Eventually, we left the A&W and made another overnight trip into the frigid wasteland that was the prairies. And I oddly have this memory, I'm not sure if it's even real or not, but I have this memory of passing by a house in the middle of the night and the house just being completely on fire, like engulfed in flames, like something out of a movie, like flames shooting up above the house, and we just flew right past it. And nobody else saw it. And I don't even know if it's a real memory. It might have just been my sleep-deprived, delusional 18-year-old virgin brain. I gotta tell you too, I had this fantasy in my mind, I had this fantasy in my brain that I was gonna meet some girl on the bus and we were gonna smooch on the bus, we were gonna get it on. Never happened, but it kind of happened for Windbreaker. Or at least that's what we thought, because the following day, when we were heading through a particularly icy stretch of highway, an argument began at the back of the bus. All I heard was Windbreaker shouting, "I don't want to do those things with you. I don't want to do those things with you." It looks like she had shot her shot with Windbreaker, and he was rejecting her. Imagine getting rejected by Windbreaker. Windbreaker was rejected. He was shouting, "I just want to be friends. I don't want to do those things with you," over and over again at the back of the bus. And we are going through the middle of fucking nowhere. You have to understand, while this is happening, we are going through the middle of fucking nowhere. Like icy terrain, there is nothing around, and there is this full-blown rejection happening on the back of the bus. Oh my God. And Windbreaker, I look back and he's sitting there in his bus seat, yelling for some reason over and over again, "I don't want to do those things with you. I don't want to do those things with you." And he's holding a bottle of Sprite that he has just opened. Like, this guy hasn't even taken a sip out of this Sprite. Okay? He's holding this bottle of Sprite, just cracked it right open. "I don't want to do those things with you." And like a guardian angel, like a warrior from heaven, like a beautiful seraphim wielding a golden blade. An old man, about the age of 75, we'll say, stands up behind Windbreaker. From the seat directly behind him, he stands up and he yells, "Don't be an asshole." He then cocks his fist back and just punches Windbreaker right in the side of the face. Just connects him, just clocks him. And I remember seeing this, it was like poetry in motion, because not only did he hit Windbreaker directly in the face, he was holding that bottle of Sprite, and the Sprite bottle like ejaculated into the air. And it got Sprite all over Windbreaker, and a little bit got on the girl too. And you know, we're in the middle of fucking nowhere. So the bus driver hears this and he starts yelling, and eventually he pulls over the bus. He ends up separating them like children. He brings the old man into the front, which is funny that he brought the old man into the front, because that still left Windbreaker to work out his failed romance with this woman. Like, he didn't know, the bus driver didn't know that Windbreaker should have been moved to prevent further problems. And at the next stop, both Windbreaker and the old man were forced to end their Greyhound bus experience. They were kicked off the bus. Now, in the front of my guitar case was a giant Tupperware container filled with marijuana cookies. Cookies laced with marijuana, which is a plant that when smoked or eaten, it produces psychoactive effects. And this plant wasn't always legal in Canada. In fact, it was quite illegal at the time. And for us to have these marijuana cookies was a point of contention, you see. And the reason it was a point of contention was because not long before our trip took place, somebody was decapitated on a Greyhound bus. Somebody's head was severed from their body on a Greyhound bus. You see, this was kind of like the 9/11 for buses, because even now the security on buses is quite high. Recently I took a bus just to a neighboring city, and the driver actually stimulated my prostate before I entered the bus. He checked to see if I was holding anything in my butt. But what I'm trying to say is security was really high, and at every checkpoint, a drug dog would sniff my bag, but they couldn't tell if it was weed. They couldn't tell that it was weed cookies because it was just normal cookies. And at this point, we were thinking, hey, we got to eat these cookies, man, because we keep getting lucky. But one of these times, maybe they're going to pull us aside and they're going to take a crumb of cookie and they're going to test it, you know. And they're going to find out that we're smuggling drugs across provinces, illegal drugs. So we decided to eat all of these cookies. And the truth is, we didn't know how to make edibles. Like, these were homemade cookies, and they weren't very strong, but we ate about like 10 cookies each or something. It was ridiculous. We ate like this entire box of cookies. It was insane. And right after we ate them, we were dropped off at another checkpoint, at another Greyhound bus. It was like the worst time possible to eat them. And just as they were kicking in, we ended up in this huge security line. And I was so fucking high, it was unbelievable. And the security officer said, empty your pockets. And all of a sudden I start pulling out just so much pocket garbage, just like Tim Hortons wrappers, Snickers bars, fucking lint. Like, I didn't know. I was 18, I was a child. I didn't know to like empty my pocket garbage every once in a while. Like, that's the level of life experience I had. I didn't know that I was supposed to like empty my pocket garbage once in a while. So here I am, he's got these bins out. He says, empty your pockets into these bins. And I'm just like high out of my fucking mind, just pulling out pocket garbage. Like, right now I got 2 guitar picks and I have a price tag from work. Like, this may be pocket garbage, but you can imagine that this would have been useful at one point, and same with these picks. But the truth of the matter is, I was just pulling out pure shit. I was just pulling out pure shit from my pockets, like just pure garbage. Like, I'm pretty sure there was like a muffin bottom in one of my pockets. Like, it was like, oh. And they're looking at me like, dude, like, there's a lineup of like 50 people behind me, and they're like, dude, man, like, what bus are you even going on? And I said, you know, I'm taking the bus to Nelson, British Columbia. And they said, that bus doesn't leave for another 12 hours. So you're gonna have to do this security checkpoint again. And also you're gonna have to stay in Calgary. I think it was in Calgary for 12 hours. And that's more than anybody. That's not what you want to hear. That's what I'm trying to say. And so he said, why don't you just go sit down and clear out your pockets? And then, I mean, after that, we just waited in that bus stop for like 12 hours until we were sober. And then we got on a bus. We went down a beautiful mountain highway, and these mountains stretched up around us like beautiful giants from the heavens, reminding us of how small we are, reminding us of how our lives are cradled in this beautiful planet, this Mother Earth beautiful planet with these incredible monuments to her beauty surrounding us, things that we couldn't possibly control or understand. And we're seeing this for the first time. I'm seeing this for the first time as an 18-year-old man who got on the bus as a boy. I got on the bus as an 18-year-old boy, and by the time I saw these mountains, I was an 18-year-old man, because I had seen an insane person, I had seen a failed romance, and I saw an old man punch Windbreaker in the face. And I also learned a valuable lesson about pocket garbage. And I also learned to hold my poops, because I don't think I pooped one time, because nobody wants to poop in those bathrooms. Nowadays, I can poop anywhere, but back then I can't imagine that I shit, you know, and I think I would remember if I did. And then eventually we got to our destination. And the real adventure began. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Romshii Radio. I do appreciate you. I'm still working out this whole format and figuring out what works, what doesn't work, you know. And if you're watching this, I do appreciate it. And if you have any feedback, let me know. I mean, I do eventually want to have some sort of a green screen element. I do eventually want to talk about philosophy and read poetry and sing beautiful love songs, but for now I'm talking about Windbreaker, and I do appreciate you for listening. So if you listen this far, why don't you drop me a comment, tell me your favorite moment, tell me your least favorite moment, and we can go from there. So thank you very much, Romshinators, for tuning in. I appreciate you. Have a fantastic evening. Have a fantastic day. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not all that, because I know you are. I love you.